Somewhere in the Genghis Khan Capital Management database of potential investment vehicles sat the documents related to one proposal by a young analyst with dreams. He'd come up with a way he believed to empower people in the poorest urban neighborhoods and rural trailer parks across the country. It seemed like an unlikely dream to the Genghis Khan Capital Management executive who passed on the ideas. The young analyst had a vision in which he'd go to people living as tenants in, say, an urban slum and use some of the best hustles from Wall Street and turn those tricks into vehicles for the manifestation of real dreams. It's like a Ponzi scheme that doesn't sell bullshit as long as we step into our dreams. We've never had shit. Nobody ever believed in us. For 450 years, we've been dicked around. The kids in rich suburbs and upper middle class communities, they get the resources to have a top-notch education from an early age. They plan for their careers. They study to get into the best colleges. They take personality tests, aptitude tests to find out what kind of a career best suits them. And then if they're in an upper middle class community, they go to school and learn. Then they go to professional school and learn about some profession and then get high-paying jobs that teach them how to do the job. We can get that and it will be fraud if we don't do the work to transform ourselves, sure. But if we do all the work and perform even as well as the average upper middle class white community at the professional type jobs they do, the Ponzi scheme won't be fraud. It's just what rich people have been doing all along. Imagine a rich neighborhood in a place that doesn't have one. And then you buy the property on the cheap because it's a poor neighborhood. Then you get investors to buy that kind of an imaginary neighborhood based upon a picture of something that will be there as long as we get the financing. Well, we'll just, as tenants in a slum, sell them the same thing, only we're going to be those future rich professionals in the luxury condos, in the picture of the future the investors bought into. And since we'll be using some of the initial fund to buy the buildings we live in as well as the buildings in the neighborhood around them that are probably condemned or being foreclosed on anyway, or owned by bankrupt slumlords, then we'll use the surplus we have to create a fund for the project costs to be front-loaded. And we use those resources we need and earmark those project costs we need to transform ourselves. The profit that would go to the fund managers, the project managers, the brokers up front, that'll go into investing in our self-transformation. We just create a long-term asset class that has value based upon the picture of what our undesirable neighborhood looks like now and what it would look like once it's transformed. And upper middle class professionals live in luxury condos in the same place. And there are businesses and restaurants that sell those upper middle class professionals and people like them services and stuff. And once the property looks like an upper middle class property and people have purchased at a premium commercial properties around our condos and it's already made the initial investors a killing, if there are buyers willing to buy business property around us, then everyone's making money as long as we become upper middle class professionals after the fact. So we've created a 15-year, maybe 30-year asset class for investors that will really make them money as long as the real estate values go up. Really? Because that means that as long as we become the community that the investor circular explains would be the upper middle class professionals who buy the luxury condos to begin with, and we build the condos at cheaper rates than those any contractor would build them for because we're doing the labor maybe as we're studying to do the work in the professional jobs we're going to do once we're living in those condos that we're building for ourselves, and we make sure that we've got the best architects and the contract managers, and it's actually up to the design physically for the buildings that was shown to the investors, then we're fine. Well, the details need to be worked out. Maybe we finance our own purchase of each individual condo at non-predatory rates later from the fund. Maybe we sell off some of the commercial property at the new high rates and use part of the surplus to finance our own transformation, and then we pay back the fund once we've become those professionals able to afford home ownership. In any case, it's a 30-year asset, and over 30 years it's still valuable. And after the initial capital, selling some of those bundled long-term assets gets us securitizing our dreams that we will be those upper middle class professionals living in that picture perfect community of upper middle class professionals shown to investors by the developer and the fund manager, who's really one of us, to get them to finance buying into our shit slums and bulldozing those shit slums and turning our neighborhood into an upper middle class neighborhood. So the property values do go up in multiples that make investors drool. We'll just need to do what we say we're going to do, put in the work to make our dreams come true. then if we put in the work and we step into our dreams, well, that Ponzi scheme, it's not going to be fraud. It's what rich people do. It's what developers do to take rich people, make poor people's neighborhoods look like rich people neighborhoods, sell the property to professionals who are the rich people in the new neighborhood, so the developer gets even richer. Only where the developer and the future professionals living in our new rich neighborhood, as long as we do or can do anything an upper middle class neighborhood can do once it's time to be those professionals and we've had the opportunity. And here's the thing, the increase in real estate value will come later, but the boost, the initial boost that we'll get from securitizing our dream, what rich people do all the time, we'll use that to fund our personal transformation. We won't need the best colleges because we'll design our own curricula. And we'll study even harder than rich kids study when they're getting wasted in college and professional school, and we'll become experts. And with the new luxury properties that just got financed, the ones that sell and will give us the initial income to look like a real upper middle class neighborhood, we'll be getting clients for our professional jobs. And if we are our own clients in this neighborhood, the way it is in a lot of upper middle class neighborhoods, we'll work for each other. And we'll get some clients from the outside and we'll outperform them out there because they were born thinking it's just a birthright to get the chance to be a lawyer. Just a birthright to get the chance to be a banker and go to school and learn how to do it right, because we never imagined anything like that. We never imagined anything like that could be possible for us. So we're going to study harder, and we're going to hustle and work harder when we're doing the jobs that professionals do. And we'll have the knowledge to do it because we'll be faster and we'll hustle harder than them, outperform them. And then the fraud, it was only fraud because we couldn't tell them at the time that we were those professionals in the picture. And in the picture that we painted them when they got excited to kick us out and bulldoze our shit slum and turn it into an upper middle class neighborhood. It's that easy. If we do the work and hustle, we'll be those professionals. And how many of you, if I told you that in 10 years from now, you could be a lawyer or a financial investor or a financial advisor in 10 years from now who owns your own business, owns your own luxury home, as long as you just hustle harder than rich people who grow up in the suburbs do when they do those jobs. And how many of you would hustle harder and do it? That's what I thought. All of us. So let's do this. Maybe we'll call that 30-year long-term asset a trust covenant bond. It will really just bundle the investment in the poorest communities in America into a long-term asset that makes investors money as long as the most overlooked, undervalued people in America are willing to hustle for their dreams. I've seen investors willing to bet millions, hundreds of millions on the overall increase to real estate value that would come into that would come with environmental improvements to commercial property. I've seen real estate brokers who've sold mortgages to working Hispanic families who couldn't speak English but had dreams, sold those mortgages to those families at rates they couldn't afford in the end. And they drove off with a Porsche just based on the fact that the bank was willing to lend at, say, 7.9%, but that family agreed to 9.9%. A 9.9% mortgage that after 2 years was essentially paying interest, of essentially paying interest only, was now unaffordable to them. So after the real estate bubble burst, this guy, he still had his Porsche. The banks, they still got bailed out. Wall Street guys, they didn't pay back the fortunes that they didn't lose if they didn't lose them. The brokers were still driving around in Porsches. Some of them made the money to buy that Porsche just because of one loan to one family. I saw the license plate that said 2 points. That meant, hey, I bought this Porsche because I sold a family a mortgage at 2 points over what they could afford or what the bank was willing to lend money at. So what if you said, well, the concept makes sense. You'll make money, investors, if neighborhoods are transformed, but instead of just investing in the physical transformation of the actual structures on those properties, you invested in that, plus you take some of what the middlemen were making, and you sell that transformation to the investors, you package the new assets, and you got creatively structured derivatives and bundled securities and you invested the money that the people creating those creatively structured derivatives and bundled securities, and then who were the brokers and all of the middlemen, and you took that money and you invested that money in the poorest people living in the poorest neighborhoods, that right now it's the cheapest real estate in America, and you bundle the investment in the transformation of the hungriest people most willing and most able to hustle for their dreams, and you create a long-term investment vehicle. And it's a new asset, and it works. As long as the people most willing and able to hustle for dreams actually hustle once the opportunity to do it right comes around. It's stealing from the rich to give to the poor, but you're not stealing anything but the ideas used to structure new assets as securities. And you make those investments almost fail-proof so long as you trust the people to hustle. And I trust the people, so maybe I'm a fool, but baby, we can do it. We can prove them wrong, and all we need is a Robin Hood to sell a piece of the pie that will be overflowing with value if we're given the opportunity to make it happen.